Joe Rogan has become one of the most influential figures in America after Trump won the elections. And Rogan revealed some insane insights into decisions that Newsom made in California, terrible things that he has done, and how Newsom destroyed California because of his strange policies. So let's explain everything. So Rogan shared on Twitter how in a recent episode of Rogan's podcast, Mel Gibson revealed his concerns about Newsom's policies in California and how he is destroying the state. According to Rogan and Gibson, California is being decimated by Newsom's insane decisions. And they talked about the recent disaster in California. After several fires broke out across Southern California, people blamed Governor Gavin Newsom for the disaster because there are a lot of people saying Newsom established insane laws and rules there. And Rogan discussed this situation because the problem is that many politicians, including Trump, claim that Newsom made a terrible decision when he refused to approve a water restoration declaration in California that would change the situation and have allowed millions of gallons of water from excess rain and snowmelt in very important territories in Northern California to flow into various parts of the state, especially in the areas currently experiencing severe fires. Of course, in response, the governor's office dismissed Trump's claims, saying it is a pure fiction, and as a result, many celebrities have lost their homes in the Pacific Palisades area as wildfires continue to devastate parts of Los Angeles County. According to local officials, the fires have burned over 27,000 acres, destroyed more than 10,000 structures, and claimed at least 7 lives as of Thursday. And so Rogan's discussion turned to how California is being managed under Newsom's leadership, with Rogan criticizing the state's spending priorities. He pointed out that while $24 billion was spent on homelessness in the past year, nothing was allocated to wildfire prevention, saying, they spent $24 billion last year on the homeless, and what did they spend on preventing these wildfires? Zip. Gibson highlighted Newsom's unfulfilled promises. In 2019, Newsom said, that he would take care of the forest, maintain the forest, and do all that kind of stuff. He didn't do anything, Gibson said. Rogan also noted that water supplies had been cut off, further compounding the mismanagement. I would be surprised if my home is still there, Gibson said, referencing his Southern California residence. He added that his son, a volunteer firefighter, sent him a video of his neighborhood. It's in flames. It looks like an inferno. Later, Gibson confirmed that his house had been destroyed. Mocking the situation, Gibson joked that all our tax dollars probably went for Gavin's hair gel. Rogan criticized the overall state governance, describing it as so poorly managed, adding that it was both frustrating and confusing. He also condemned Newsom's optimistic portrayal of California, saying, and then he gets on TV and pretends like everything is great. California's the best. We have the best state. We have the most amazing economy. And this is not the first time Rogan has expressed his dissatisfaction with Newsom's poor management and leadership as governor. It all began 2 years ago. That's when in 2022, Joe Rogan strongly criticized Governor Gavin Newsom's strict measures, especially against small businesses, and his handling of the crisis drove Rogan to leave the state. He continued to express his opposition to Newsom, encouraging Californians not to support him in future elections. During this episode of his podcast featuring Aaron Rodgers as a guest, Rogan shared his frustrations about Newsom and the Democratic policies in California. He spoke openly about the struggles faced by people impacted by those decisions, emphasizing the hardships they endured. Rogan remarked, as far as compensation for all of those people that were forced to close their businesses and keep their doors shuttered and lost everything they had worked for decades to build, no, they're just going to be angry. In 2023, Joe Rogan argued that Gavin Newsom would not be a suitable candidate for president. Rogan believed that Newsom's track record, especially in handling California's issues, made him a weak candidate despite his ability to present himself well. Rogan criticized Newsom for his leadership in California, saying, the problem is he did such a bad job with California. They're so vulnerable. While acknowledging that Newsom could produce effective propaganda, Rogan highlighted the reality faced by residents in the state. He pointed out that even though California has major companies and influential people, many feel trapped. You've got to know the real stats of how many of them feel stuck, because if you ask people on the street in California, I think the number was 4 out of 10 people they surveyed are thinking about moving out of California, he said. Reflecting on his own decision to leave California, Rogan shared how the riots in 2020 after George Floyd's death influenced his choice. I was like, this ain't going in a good direction, he explained. He pointed to policies in California that he believed led to chaos, such as the state's approach to crime and homelessness. Rogan criticized the impact on businesses, saying it's madness. There are so many businesses that are closing down, they don't want to be a part of it anymore. Moreover, in 2024, Joe Rogan and Brett took a sharp aim at Newsom during their discussion, describing him as disingenuous and overly theatrical. Rogan opened by mocking Newsom's exaggerated language and presentation, especially in his praise of President Biden. Rogan critiqued Newsom's loyalty comments, comparing his behavior to an actor in an outdated movie. "He's acting like he's in a 1950s James Cagney movie," Rogan joked, suggesting that Newsom's delivery lacked authenticity. They also criticized Newsom's neglect of California's pressing issues. Rogan said Newsom had no business campaigning on national politics when California was grappling with homelessness, crime, and systemic failures. "You've got to clean up California first, sir," Rogan exclaimed, pointing to the dire state of Los Angeles and the challenges Newsom had yet to address as governor. In the same year, Joe Rogan criticized Gavin Newsom's handling of homelessness in San Francisco, calling it a harmful approach. Rogan argued that the worsening situation was a result of Newsom's policies, which he believed were unhealthy and counterproductive. Reports showed that homelessness in the city had increased by 7% since 2022, with over 8,000 people still living on the streets. Rogan revealed that Newsom's administration was paying people to remain in their unsanitary street camps. He said, "Just paying people to stay on the streets, giving them money, giving them food. All I have to do is sleep in that tent." Rogan also highlighted what he saw as hypocrisy in Newsom's actions during Chinese President Xi Jinping's visit to San Francisco in late 2023. According to Rogan, the streets were suddenly cleaned, and homeless people were barred from setting up camps in their usual locations. This stark contrast drew criticism toward Newsom. Rogan remarked, "When Xi Jinping came to town, everything was hosed down, everybody was moved out. They put fences up where people couldn't camp there anymore. It was wild." And Gavin Newsom's response is that when your friends come over, you clean your house up. You psycho. And now back to 2025, during a discussion with his guest, Rogan blamed Newsom for the current situation in Los Angeles, stating, "You've ruined this state, personally ruined it." Gibson agreed and compared the issues in Los Angeles to those in San Francisco. "Well, it's the same team that was up in San Francisco, and they came down to LA and are doing what they did in San Francisco," Gibson observed. He described San Francisco as being in an apocalyptic state marked by homelessness and urban decline. "San Francisco is kind of like apocalyptic now. I went there and it's just like people, homeless. It's just a mess," he said. Rogan reflected on the broader state of the city, remarking, "It's just unbelievable that society can crumble that quickly." And that's it for today.